Hi, welcome to my latest video. This is not a van build video. This is a video on one of my other hobbies, which is 3D printing. I'm making a helmet for a Remlok Space suit. This is from the computer game Elite Dangerous, and as a commander in the game I've been playing it for some time, and I always wanted to make a copy of the Remlok Space suit. I was told that this would be extremely difficult, and in fact lots of people told me that making a helmet would be virtually impossible. So a couple of years ago I decided to start making or designing a helmet, and in order to design it I used 123D Design, which is made by Autodesk. It's a free piece of software that you can download from the internet, and after much messing around I produced a design I was reasonably happy with. After prototyping it in PLA plastic, I came up with a design that I was happy with, and I started to print out the parts to make it. Various different types of prototype were made until I got something that not only looked correct but also fitted, and well, I was quite happy with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a few videos, a small video project series on the design and manufacture of this helmet. Welcome to video number 1. If you like what I'm doing, or you're interested in how it progresses, then please subscribe to my channel. I will of course be making all of these files to make or 3D print this helmet available on the internet. There's a great deal of work gone into making this design, and I may charge a few pounds for the designs, for the STL files. If you're interested in this, please give the video a like. Please subscribe and see how the project progresses. This is the picture of the helmet I'm trying to make. You can see here the side of the helmet, the back of the helmet, and the front of the helmet. I do plan to make the whole spacesuit, the whole of the Remlok spacesuit system. I've already planned out how I'm going to make the suit, using EVA foam and other cosplay manufacturing techniques. Okay, here's the Remlok helmet as I built it in Autodesk 123D Design. It's a CAD package, it's free to use and download. This is the final design of my helmet. Obviously it's designed for 3D printing, so there are some things on here that are missing and some things on here that are added for aid of 3D printing. Each part is designed so that it can lock together and be glued in place. On the final design there will be a little symbol here on the ear muff. These design files will be made available once I've finished 3D printing it and making sure everything is correct. I've already made a prototype of this helmet, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's just a rough prototype to make sure it all fits together properly. The back part of the helmet here will be made from EVA foam and carved into the correct shape. I've already made a prototype of that. The rest of it will be 3D printed. The visor and the top of the helmet shown here clear, but mine's going to be black. The front part of the visor will be made from 2mm thick acrylic sheet, which will be vacuum formed over this 3D print of the visor. The top of the helmet will be 3D printed in either ABS or PLA and glued into place, polished up and sprayed black, because I want a black visor and helmet top. There are holes for the blue LED lights, and what is not shown here are the holes for the 3D print of the LEDs that go in here, but on the actual muff support there are little holes for the blue LEDs. Not only will the files for the individual parts be made available, but I will also include the overall file so that people can take it apart and see how it all fits together. Each one of the parts can be 3D printed separately, or they can be 3D printed in groups, such as the whole part of the back bit. Depends how good your 3D printer is, really, and how much time you want to spend printing it out. Personally, I like to print it out in smaller pieces, because if any bit goes wrong, you're not ruining the whole print. So it is designed to be printed in separate pieces. The main 3D printed parts can be shown here. As you can see, on the inside of the ear muff, I've got a little part here with some holes in it. Inside that ear muff you can put a 2-inch 50mm loudspeaker if you want sound inside the helmet. Perhaps I can just show you that moving out. As you can see, it slots in over the earmuff, and there's a space here for the speaker. And of course it's the same on the other side, like so. The back part is not 3D printed, so if I can just turn this around to show you. This part of the helmet is not 3D printed. It is in fact made up of EVA foam. So I can just delete all that just for a second, so you can see the actual parts that you'll be printing on your 3D printer. There you go. So that's all of the 3D printed material, apart from the top of the helmet and the visor. I'll show you the muff detail in a minute, because there's some Remlok detail to go on top of this top section of the muff there. On the final print, there's also a slot in this part of the jaw which holds EVA foam as well. My plan is to make the whole suit eventually, so I'm going to make this helmet match the suit that I'm going to make, and in order to do that I should be using EVA foam to make the suit. This is the complete ear muff design. As you can see, it's hollow to hold the loudspeaker. It's got a hole for the wire here, and a little hole here for the wire for the LED. This groove here is to hold the cover, the ear muff cover, and this is the muff top. That's where the little overhead cross member support goes in, and as you can see here, I've actually put the Remlok, if I get the light right on that, the actual diamond shape, well, hexagonal shape or whatever it is there, on the surface of the earmuff, which you can then go over perhaps with a bit of lighter paint or something. There's also a little locking lug here for locking the earmuff into the correct position on the side cheek section. Let me just see if I can change the colour of this piece here so you can see the detail. Perhaps change it to that colour and see. There we go. Okay, you can see the design on there, a lot easier now. It's a raised section of the print, and it prints quite nicely, so that's the design you see on the earmuff of the helmet. You can print this as all one unit, but then of course you'll have to put supports, enable supports on your slicer to fill this area here and print it face down. I printed it separately because I like to do shorter print times wherever possible, and I should just glue the two together with some ABS slowing, or if you're using PLA you can use super glue. This is the earmuff cover that goes over the earmuffs at the side of the helmet. Some little slots in there in case you want to put a loudspeaker inside the earmuff to let the sound out. This is the jaw section of the helmet. I've included these locking lugs so they lock into the cheek section of the helmet. This is the complete right side of the helmet with the occipital part of the helmet that goes behind the ear, and the cheek part of the helmet and as you can see here, there's little slots there to mount the jaw section on the front, and some little slots just here and here for the rear cross member to mount. There's a little notch just here that matches in with the earmuff to locate the earmuff in the correct position. This is the earmuff support for the cross member. Plugs directly into the earmuff on each side, and the cross member goes into that little slot just there. As you can see, it's got all the surface designs on, and also the little hole here for the blue LED. This is the rear cross member for the helmet. And because I'm going to be printing with ABS, I'm going to put a base on in order to get it to stick to the bed, and I can trim that off later with a sharp knife. There we go. That'll help it stick to the bed. When I put it into my slicer, I actually chopped it in half, and just to make it quicker to print, so it's printing in 2 halves. You can see the bed there, the actual little plates to help it stick to the bed. I really need this with ABS, but not so much with PLA. Both sets of files are of course included. This is the top cross member that goes over the top of the helmet, and there's a bit that goes on over the top of this that can be stuck on printed separately, and this is the insert that goes onto the cross member at the top. This is the CAD for the microphone inside the helmet. A little gap here for the little yellow light emitting diode, and it fits on the earmuff. These are the 2 little plastic inserts that go into the cross member with the Remlok symbol on. This is the blank for the visor. Initially I printed this from black PLA, and the reason I did that was to make sure it actually fitted the helmet when it was complete. I've already made a prototype of this helmet, so that's the exact size that's needed to fit inside it. These areas here go around the earmuffs, and they can be glued to the earmuffs if you want. The helmet visor is designed to lift. There are some lines on the helmet that are not really consistent with the actual Remlok helmet, but these can be sanded down so they blend in quite nicely. It's the only way really that I could figure out how to make the actual shape of the visor that's needed. In order to make this visor, it has to be vacuum formed with some 2mm acrylic, so that this will have to be solid, and you can print it solid with infill, or you can print the visor then make a plaster of Paris mold or something like that you can then use to vacuum form the visor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to print it out of PLA, and I'm going to solidify the whole visor, and then I'm going to use the shape of the visor to actually vacuum form the acrylic sheet over the top. It probably won't last more than 1 or 2 times because of the high temperature of the acrylic when you vacuum form it, but I should be able to get 1 or 2 pulls quite easily off it. Either that, or I'll cast it with plaster of Paris or something in order to vacuum form it. Okay, so I've got quite a lot of these parts printed up already. I'm going to start vapor smoothing them and gluing them together. That's the part I've just printed. As you can see, that's quite nice. This needs to be vapor smoothed with some acetone, and when it's vapor smooth it should come out as shiny as the muff cover has done here. This was the original prototype, the first one I made. It looks a bit rough because I've sanded it down in certain areas and I've not painted it yet. And the top of the muff is missing here, and the visor, and the back of the helmet, of course, and so on. This was just so that I could make sure that I could design the back part of the helmet. The back part of the helmet is made of EVA foam, and this is quite a rough mock-up of the design, and is not the final version by any means. But the whole inside of the helmet can then be lined with foam, and the back shape of the helmet can then be made from EVA foam. And glued onto the back of the helmet itself. As I say, this is a very rough mock-up and is nowhere near as good a quality as the final prints that I'm making. This is the back part of the helmet, printed with PLA in two halves. There's a bit of a seam down it, as you can see, where I've started to sand it down. And once sanded and properly filled, and I've sprayed it, that will look quite nice. If I can just show you, get the camera in the right position. It goes onto the helmet like that and fits very nicely onto the actual helmet itself. As I said, this is the first prototype and is by no means the quality of the final design. Well, that's the end of this video, video number 1. Please stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell if you're interested in seeing the second video in this series. I think there'll probably be about 4 videos, maybe 5, depending on how long it takes me to make the helmet and the detail I want to put into it.